The Cooper River Bridge Run returns this Saturday for its 44th year. Today, I talk with someone who helped create the Cooper River Bridge Run, Terry Hamlin, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Terry Hamlin, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Good morning, Quintin. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. You are a man who really needs no introduction in the Charleston running community. Obviously, you were asked by Dr. Newberry to create the Cooper River Bridge Run many years ago. And as you know, the 44th annual Cooper River Bridge Run will happen tomorrow. And the finish line is really right a block away from where I'm sitting right now. Where are you emotionally?
I turned 70 a week ago, and it's hard to wrap my mind around that part, considering I started the race when I was 27 years old. And so I feel blessed to be not necessarily an integral part of the race at this point, but to see that the race is actually going on and we're finally back again after COVID, and we're wrapping ourselves into running again, and people are happy again. People are smiling, just like you just did.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I was just walking by the finish festival a few seconds ago, and everything's basically set up with the water and the hand sanitizer stations and whatnot. But obviously, now that the Cooper River Bridge Run is obviously the third largest 10K race in the country.
Right?
How do we get there?
I would say Julian Smith was really the best thing that we ever did, was to hire the late Julian Smith, as our race director. Julian was not only a great race director, he had an aura about him. And when you met him, he was a man of large stature. He was about 6 feet 7 inches tall and about 275. So he was imposing. Yet, when you saw how gentle he was, it was hard not to like Julian. He was just one of these guys that the first words out of his mouth lended you to becoming his friend. Not only a business association, but a friendship.
That's just amazing. And what would he think about this bridge run now, 44 years later?
The same he always thought. He loved it. He was proud of it. It was literally his life, because when I created the race, it would take us about 3 months out of the year to get ready for it and put it on. For the first 4 that I co-race directed as well as founded, and I probably did about 10 or 12 jobs making the race happen, because we just didn't have the manpower, and we certainly didn't have the people who were experienced in road racing. But Julian had a great talent for hiring the best people to do the best job to make the race come off properly.
Wow, that's just amazing. Let me ask you this, Terry. You all obviously didn't have the manpower and obviously the people at that time. What did you make up for?
Well, I think that the fact that there was a question at first as to whether we would really even have many people that wanted to participate. Well, that question was answered the very first year. We had a little over 600 signed up the day before the race. The day of the race, I was sitting at a little card table at Patriots Point, where we started at that time, and up walks 300 or 400 more people who wanted to register for the race. The race fee was $2, and we gave out shirts until they ran out. and then we said we would have some more made for you and sent to you if you would contact us, and we did. We actually had a vote, which was this is the most incredible part about this race, on the first one at least. We set up a board. Marcus Newberry and I set up a board of physicians and health advisors, professors at the College of Charleston, because the Charleston Running Club, the MedU, and the college, the Running Club, College of Charleston, MedU, and Citadel, all four of us sort of put our minds together and our personnel together and formed a board of about a dozen guys, and we had a vote as to whether to have water on the course. Now, the prediction was for temperatures in the 80s that day. And, these were not trained runners. I was trained well enough, and the other high-level runners, where we could run 10,000 meters without taking in water, and we'd be just fine.
Right.
However, there were people who were not prepared for that. And so I kept saying, we need water on the course, and the board members kept saying, well, here are the AAU rules. And I said, the heck with the rules. We're talking about people's lives. Right. And we literally could kill someone with heat stroke in this race if we don't do it right and we don't give them proper hydration and cool them. My vote, I was only one of two people who voted for water on the race. We were voted down, and I said, guess what, guys? Too bad. There's going to be water on the course if I have to put it there myself, and I will. And so I did. I rented tables from the rental place downtown. I bought 1,000 paper cups and some big coolers. I got some Citadel cadets to man and running club members to man the tables. And we had 2 tables along the course, and then we had a table at the end of the course. And so I've heard it spoken, and I've seen it in print that we didn't have water on the course. That is absolutely false. We had water on the course. We did run out, though. We ran out simply because we ran out. And one of the people, which I think is now I can chuckle because he's okay, who voted against having water on the course, was one of the people we sent to the hospital with heat exhaustion that day in an ambulance. And so I teased him about that for years after that, and I said, Dewey, what do you think about having water on the course this year? And he would laugh, and he said, boy, I was an idiot. And I said, yeah, I have to admit, you were. I said, the human body core temperature, if it gets over 104 degrees, you're in real trouble. And after that, we learned a big lesson.
And I hope this is the right Dewey that I'm talking about, but the South Carolina State Senator Dewey Wise introduced legislation to permit the event to be held over the reversible lane on the three-lane Silas Pyramid Bridge.
That's correct.
Oh, good, awesome. What did you and Dr. Newberry did in the meantime while this legislation was happening in Columbia?
Well, we had our fingers crossed. Here's exactly what happened. At the time, I was a chemist at MUSC, and I supervised the electrophoresis laboratory. I had 2 telephones in my lab. One was a red phone, which was an emergency phone for physicians to call in for emergency test results or for diagnostics on a patient. And one was our normal inner system and outside call line. The red phone rang. I picked it up. I said, Hamlin, this is the Wednesday before the race, mind you. Everything is prepared. Everything's ready to go. On the end of the line was Silas Pierman. He said, is this Terry Hamlin? I said, yes, it is. He said, Mr. Hamlin, this is Silas Pierman, and I understand that you're planning a race over the Cooper River Bridge this coming Sunday. We had it on Sunday one time. We learned our lesson there too. And I said, yes, sir, we are. And I thought he was calling to congratulate us. More wrong I could not have been. He was calling to tell us, his exact words were, Mr. Hamlin, you can have a race in Charleston anywhere you like, but you're not shutting down the reversible lane of the Cooper River Bridge, and that's my decision. And I said, but the race is already set.
Right.
And he said, I don't care. He said, it's my decision. And I say, you're not going to have it. And I said, well, Mr. Pierman, I have to tell my board members, may I call you back in an hour? And he said, you can call me back, but it won't do any good. And I said, okay, well, thank you, sir, and I'll call you right back. So I immediately called Mark Newberry, and he said, let's call Dewey. Dewey was in the legislature. We got Dewey's secretary, and she said, Dewey is in session right now. As soon as he gets out, he should be out in about 10 minutes. I will have him call you. He conference called Marcus and I, and we told him what happened. And Dewey said, don't worry, I can fix this. He said, I have a bill going through the legislature this afternoon, and the governor has already said that he will sign it. I will tag to the end of that bill the use of the Cooper River Bridge 1 day per year ad infinitum for the Medical University of South Carolina and Charleston Running Club, and it will become law. And too bad for Silas Pierman, because he cannot override that. And that is exactly what happened.
Wow. That's amazing story. So when you did call him back, what did he say?
He was furious, and of course, but you know, he sort of mellowed in the years later on. And towards the end of his life, there was an interview with him, and you would have thought that he had started the race at that point. He was so proud of it at that point, but you know, and that's fine. You know, I'm so happy that he finally understood the economic impact, the physiology impact, the health of the community impact, and all the other good things that the bridge run brought.
And I know in the mid-1970s, obviously Dr. Newberry had a visit to his Ohio hometown and noticed that somebody was building a running track around the offices to encourage employees' physical fitness.
Yes.
How are people in Charleston basically getting themselves fit before the bridge run?
It was very rare to see a runner. A friend of mine, Bob Schlau, and I were the two top runners around, and people saw us every day because we ran over 100 miles a week back then. And a lot of it was high quality Olympic trials type running. And we ran at the track at the Citadel, and you know, and used the roads downtown and on the islands and wherever we felt like running. We would see runners here and there, and we would always wave. You know, runners back then, every runner waved to each other runner because we felt like we were a real minority in the community, which we were. But what we did not know is that there was a curiosity among the public about going over that bridge, because there wasn't a walkway. There was a 20-inch wide sidewalk, if you want to call it that, but that's all it was, with a railing that came up to about mid-thigh.
That's right.
And most people would not take their lives in their hands and run back and forth across that. I actually had an interview with the running magazine, and they asked me if I would run on the bridge in 1979, I think it was. If I would run up and down the bridge, and so they could get a photo and have the interview and the photo. I actually ran 18.6 miles just on the hill, the Mount Pleasant hillside, for this guy to get the photo. And after about 15 miles of running, and he said, I want you to run really fast. That's the picture. There it is, right there. That black and white one on the left there is me. You can see the scowl on my face because I'm at about 16 miles at that point, and I'm running close to 5-minute mile pace, 5-minute flat mile pace. And so when I get to the bottom at that point, I turn around to go back up, and I said, let me ask you a question. And he said, what? I said, are you a runner? And he said, no, not really. I just photograph for Runner's World. And I said, well, I can tell. I said, do you realize what I'm doing up here? I said, I'm running about a 2:10 marathon on a hill, a half-mile long hill. I said, when are you going to get the shot? I said, you know, I'm about done here. And he said, just a few more. Well, he ended up taking 104 photographs for that one picture. And that was the last picture he took, that one that you see there.
Right.
The very last photo. He said, and I said, why? And he said, well, I wanted the light to be exactly right. And my reply was, well, why didn't we start later? Which would make logical sense.
Right. Exactly right.
But it was all okay. I was happy. I was honored to have that photo taken, and it is on the back of my book.
So fast forward, you talked earlier about the economic impact. What was the economic impact back then in 1978, 1979, that is?
I would say back then, even back then, with the number of runners we had, the excitement in the week leading up to the race was probably $500,000 to $750,000 for that weekend. It's now up close to about $33 to $35 million of money that we can actually measure for that weekend. And we crossed, 4 years ago, we crossed the $1 billion mark of dollars, hard dollars coming into Charleston. Now, that does not include the soft money that people spend in restaurants, buying gifts, just sightseeing, what have you. So it could be a much higher number than that.
So obviously the legislation gets passed in the House, well, actually in the Senate of Columbia, and you talked to Silas Hamlin, and he kind of meddled out afterwards. How did you all actually prepare for that first race?
The late Keith Hamilton, who was a professor of physiology and mathematics at Citadel, and I measured the course, and we measured it by hand, mind you. And at that time, the first race, we ended it down at the Battery. And we had a finish line set up at the Battery right at the 6.2 mark. And the day of the race, the police made us move the finish line back. And we said, you can't do that. It won't be a 10,000 meter race. I said, what are you doing? And they said, no, this can create a traffic problem. And so the first race was actually about 150 yards short. That never happened again. Everyone was completely on board after that, and it became certified, and it is a certified American road race, and one of the top 3 in America, numbers-wise and quality-wise. We have some of the fastest 10,000 meter times in the country, even with that large hill that we run over.
And as a matter of fact, when you talk about less, I know from my research that a lot of the church members, or really the churches around Charleston, did not want you all to have a bridge run in. What were you thinking?
The day, the first one when we had it on Sunday was a nightmare, because lo and behold, as we ran past the four corners of Law, church was letting out. And so you can imagine the reaction to see all these sweaty people in shorts running past the house of God. And it was not well received, let's say. And so we happily agreed to have it on Saturday after that. It was really just a mistake. You make a lot of mistakes. Learning curves is what I call them, and that learning curve was a steep one.
So how did you all prepare for the Saturday races thereafter?
Oh, the Saturday races were easy, because by that time we had the police of Mount Pleasant and City of Charleston on board. We had Highway Patrol, the Coast Guard, everyone who could help control crowds, block off roads, the DOT. Everyone was on board, and the course was set, and we had a couple of thousand course monitors at that time. Things went along happily, and we changed the finish line a couple of times. We finished a couple of years at the College of Charleston, but it was still a certified 10,000 meter course. Then we moved the race to Meeting Street, where it finishes now, and we spill on to Marion Square so that people can gather there. Now, this race is limited to 40 to 45,000. We sometimes go a little over 40. And the only reason we limit it is because of Marion Square. Once you put 40,000 runners, their friends and family, and vendors, etc., in Marion Square, it is at capacity. We're talking 110,000 people in that one block. And so if we had a much larger finish area, we could actually, I'm sure we could draw 50 to 75,000 runners easily.
Wow.
And we now have the hotel rooms to hold them as well.
Oh, yes. Okay, where were people staying at that particular time in the late 70s?
At any motel they could find. And it's easy to handle, 1,000 people coming in from out of town. And a lot of these people were locals, by the way, so we didn't really have to handle that many. It was like a normal, exciting event day in Charleston. Charleston is a destination place. And so it was easy to handle these people. The challenge was getting people, since it started in Mount Pleasant, finished in the city of Charleston, is getting people back and forth. And so, people were encouraged to use their own personal vehicles, but load up a couple of folks and, leave their cars in Mount Pleasant. We'll get you back over there somehow. And then we eventually made a deal with a couple of bus companies, and now you see the buses loading up, taking people to the start. And the City of Charleston has graciously let us use the aquarium parking garage free of charge for the race. And some of the churches around the area allow us to use their parking lots. And so it works out just fine.
It's fine. And I know, obviously, as you talk about challenges, you told me earlier about how the police moved back the finish line a couple of meters during the last quote there. But I know the police also shortened the initial event to 9,850 meters after the gun had sounded to start the initial bridge run. Why didn't they shorten that before the gun went off, actually?
Well, I think when the sergeant came down and saw where the finish line was, that's what scared him, because a lot of the residential section is further up the course, and we would have been finishing at people's doorsteps, so to speak. And so he was concerned about them being able to come and go and park and whatever. Now people accept the fact that they're not going anywhere in their cars in that area much on that day, and so they make arrangements and we publish bypass routes to get around Charleston, so that you don't get trapped, because there's absolutely not going to be a car come onto that course during the race. We have well over 2,000 law enforcement individuals working this race each year now.
Wow. And speaking of the battery, I know that according to the research, in the tradition of historic Charleston Civil War and Revolutionary War heritage, a cannon obviously was fired at the start of the event. What other traditions did the bridge run use at that time?
Well, I don't really think that we used any specific traditions. It was just something that people looked forward to. For the first 3 or 4, people started it. It grew exponentially, which is unusual for a road race, any road race. It grew from about 900 plus starters and 600 finishers to 1,500 and to 3,000 and to 4,000, 5,000, so fast that we were constantly adapting to this, and that doesn't include spectators. It's a great spectator sport because King Street is lined 3 or 4 people deep at least, and sometimes 10 people deep along the course cheering you on. The year I lost my leg, I told my prosthetics physician, I said, I need a blade. And he said, you've barely started walking. And I said, I need a blade. And he said, I know I'm not going to talk you out of this, so you will have a blade. He said, in fact, I've already got your blade. I just didn't want to tell you about it. And I said, and this was the week after Christmas, 2010, and I had not run a step in over a year due to my injury. And I told my wife in January, I got the blade, and I said, I'm going to run this race. I'm going to run the bridge run. And she said, what? She said, you haven't trained. And I said, honey, I've been training for 40 years.
Yes.
I said, I've been a runner since I was 14 years old. I'm 59. I said, I can run 10,000 meters any day. It doesn't matter whether I've trained or not. I said, muscle memory is there. My VO2 max has always been high. I said, that's not going to be a problem. So lo and behold, I did. And the company I was working for, and this gets me a little emotional, had T-shirts made, and they had hundreds and hundreds of employees plus their families, and they had T-shirts made that said, "Run, Terry, run," with only one shoe on it. And they had placards holding them up. And when we turned off Market Street onto Meeting Street for the last half mile, that's all I could see was a sea of screaming people with these signs. And it brought tears to my eyes. I could barely finish. And they had also hired 2 large Marines to run on either side of me to keep people off of me, because people wanted to pat me on the back and say attaboy, and just they were trying to be kind and nice and sweet, but on a blade, especially if you're not really well versed in how to run on a blade, if you catch an edge, you're going down. And they didn't want me falling because I could have been trampled in the race. So they protected me quite well. The race came off without a hitch. And then I had the utter gall to tell my wife I was unhappy with my time. And she brought me back to reality. She said, let me explain something to you. She said, you haven't run a step in a year. You are running with one leg. She said, do you realize you just beat 2/3 of the field today and you're 59 years old? She said, let that sink in for a minute. And I said a little prayer and all was good at that point.
That was
Never complained again.
Never complained again. Speaking of complaints, what were the complaints as the bridge run that is grew over time?
Oh, there are people who are always experts when they're not experts, well, so to speak. I'm going to be polite and kind here. People are always telling you how they would do it. And my reply to them is, well, then next year we'll give you that job. And they scurry away as fast as they can go because they're good at advice. They're not very good at actually standing up to what they say they would like to do. So the race is put on about as well as it could be put on. And that's just what we've got. I mean, we've got a race now that is terrific, and I don't know if it could get any better than it's put on now. Our new race director, he's not new; he's actually been there several years. Irving Batten does a fabulous job. The staff has been with the race for a couple of decades. Marcy Krawchak and the others are Gloria. They know what to do. They are not only Irving's right hand, they sort of keep the wheels turning regardless of what's happening with it. If Irv's off somewhere, nothing misses a beat. They know exactly how to handle this.
And speaking of turning wheels, when did the race move from Patriots Point to the Battery to obviously Simmons Street down to right here at Marion Square?
It moved to Marion Square, I think, when we hired Julian, because at that point we had so many runners, we needed a wider road to fit for the finish, and we needed a place to put the people, and we also had an 18-wheeler with water. Cups of water that, by then we had to have probably 100,000 gallons of water just for folks. And we had vendors that wanted to sell their wares around the edge of Marion Square, which was good. We had live music, and then we started having live music along the course. We had about 12 to 14 bands playing live music along the course, blues, rock, rap, whatever you can think of, all genres of music. It was fabulous, and it still is fabulous, and we still have all of that. So it's people finish that race with big grins on their faces going, wow, we've never seen anything like this.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of that course, many people at that time, when it first started to right now, are still concerned about bandit runners. What was your plan to deal with that?
Our computer chips take care of that. They're not recorded, and they don't get into the finish chute either. They don't have a number on. They don't go through the chute. It's that simple. They are escorted out physically, and so they may run the course, but they won't get a recorded time. They won't go through the finish chute, and they won't mess up the computerized system we have.
And back then, in the 1970s, what was that issue as far as bandit runners?
we really couldn't do much about them. They could run, but then again, they still wouldn't get a recorded time because without a race number, you didn't get a recorded time. It was that simple. If you couldn't show us your number, we couldn't give you a time.
And I know the scheduled start time was 10 a.m. back in 1978.
Yeah, that's why it was 82 degrees the first day.
Right. Then it was 9 a.m. from 1979 until 1982, and then from 8:30 a.m. in 1983 until 1986, a couple of years after I was born, and 8 a.m. until obviously 2019, and still is to this day. And I know two unusual start delays caused by the unfamiliar course moved 1984 start time to 9 a.m. How did those start times affect the finish times?
Not much. Except for the first ones. The heat will affect a runner more than anything else. Runners who run 10,000 meters or 5,000 meters or the marathon have to be prepared for hills. And the biggest problem we see with untrained runners is, of course, they underestimate the bridge. The bridge is a monster, and it's the largest cable stay span in the Western Hemisphere, and it's quite a challenge. And that's why the motto is "Get over it." That means get over the bridge, get over it, and get over the race. And so heat and the hills.
And speaking of which, I know these certain group of people actually know a whole lot about hills, but the first Kenyan runners to participate were a pair of people from Charleston Southern University teammates in 1978. And I know runners from that country have dominated the race since 1993. What is the biggest difference about Kenyans from 1983 until now?
The biggest difference in the race?
With the Kenyans, the biggest difference about the Kenyans.
We have more. We invite more runners now, and we have, it's well known. It's a well-known race, and not only that, it's a tune-up race for the Boston Marathon, which is usually a couple of weeks later, and is this year as well. Even though Boston is being held in September, in October, our race is being held in late September, so it's still a tune-up for them. And that means that we're going to have, the same groups of elite runners we've always had, and additional groups of elite runners. And not only Kenyans, but we have good Irish and British runners. We have good American runners. It's a competitive race, extremely competitive. And and the addition of prize money, of course, is always important. And it also lends credibility to a runner to finish well at the bridge run.
Absolutely. We have so many notable runners who ran that race as well, including Catherine the Great, who I ran with at the 2002 Chicago Marathon when I ran it. But when was the last time an American actually basically won the Cooper River Bridge Run?
We had David Branch win it back in the 80s. David Branch was a great Clemson runner, and he, in fact, it was the year Frank Shorter ran. Frank Shorter, the gold medalist in the marathon from the 72 Olympics, was invited. And Frank thought he was just going to sweep this thing. I'll never get over it because I was at a little get-together party the night before the race, and I was talking to Frank, and I said, Frank, what kind of shape are you in? He said, I'm in pretty good shape. He said, but I won't have any trouble winning this tomorrow. And I said, Frank, I got to tell you, you're gonna see more competition than you think. And he was completely devastated that he ended up 4th or 5th in the race. And David won, and David ran in the low 29s, which is a really good time for that hilly race. Now, some of the Kenyans and Somalians and Ethiopians can run in the low 28s, and the world record is in the 26. So and it's a different world now because we know how to train. Hence my book.
Right.
Yep, Building a Better Runner, and my book is a compressed book. It's it's not very thick, and people say, why didn't you make it bigger? Well, I could have made it 4 or 5 times larger than that with much more technical information, but holding people's attention is not easy. And I wanted people to have a simple view of exactly how to train. And if you notice, my coaching email is on the very last page of the book. And so I actually have paid runners who pay me monthly for coaching them. I coach by email. They send me their workouts at the end of the week, and I send them back immediately within a few hours their next set of workouts, and we choose their goal races, be it the Olympic trials or Boston or what have you, and I train them for those races. I've got a young lady right now who lives in Pennsylvania. Her best Boston Marathon was 3 hours and 40 minutes. I have her ready right now, and I took her on a year and a half ago. I have her ready right now to run in the 240s, the Olympic marathon qualifying time for the females for 2024.
Man, that's amazing. And
so, yeah, she'll do it.
You're exactly right. And you talk about obviously preparing for the bridge run the night before, and I've done it, for 20 years since I started in 2000. But you said this, having a meal before the race is not necessary, as it will take 6 hours to assimilate solid nutrients and eliminate waste products. Wow.
Right. Yes. And so it's important 2 nights before the race, eat a little bit higher carbohydrate meal. The important thing is to take in lots of fluid because it takes 4 grams of water to metabolize 1 gram of carbohydrate into glycogen. And in a race of this distance, we're using primarily glycogen, not fat. And so I tell people don't carbo load the night before the race because you're just going to be full and your stomach may be upset. So eat a light meal the night before. Make sure you get plenty of fluid. Get as much rest as you can. You're going to be restless, but that's going to be okay. Get your full night's sleep 2 nights before the race. And on Thursday night, sleep well. Friday night, you may toss and turn a bit. Get up early Saturday morning. Take in good fluids. Take in some coffee because caffeine actually helps people to run better. It's totally legal, but it helps the body metabolize free fatty acids for energy. So that's what I tell people. There's no need to take the little gummies and things like that, all the little knickknacks and little trends that people see now for a 10,000 meter race. It's not necessary. It may be necessary in your training if you want. If it makes you feel better, go ahead, but you better test it first because if it's the first time you've taken one, you may find yourself with an upset stomach in the middle of the race.
Wow, this is new information to me after doing the bridge run for 20 years because I used to eat spaghetti the night before, banana, and all this other stuff. And yeah, wow, amazing. So fast forward 8 hours later when we wake up, I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning. What exactly should I eat? Because I'm used to eating bagels, oatmeal.
Well, you mentioned the banana.
Right.
A banana is one of what I would call the perfect foods. Bananas have high amounts of potassium. They have a wide arrangement of minerals and vitamins. It'll help your stomach to feel full, but it won't upset your stomach. It's very mild and bland. and it has just enough sugar to help you kind of stay up. And so eat a banana or two, and have some coffee or water or juice. If you have juice, dilute it a bit. Don't have anything that's heavily sweetened before a road race. If you do, some people will have what's called an insulin shunt, and that means that your body senses too much sugar has come in, your sugar level's going up, so it dumps insulin into the body to bring your sugar levels down, hence you can have a low. So we want to keep that at a steady level.
Wow. And obviously, I passed a lot of porta parties along Coleman just a couple of days ago, and obviously here at Marion Square. How much water should we drink prior to the race?
I would say 8 to 16 ounces, and drink that 2 hours before the race.
Okay.
And if you want to drink a little bit before the race, drink another 6 ounces. And then immediately following the race, then it's important to take in some water.
Wow.
Don't take in, if you've taken in a lot of salty foods the night before, which is a no-no, but some people do it anyway, don't take in a lot of water right after the race because your stomach, I promise you, will be upset.
Ooh, didn't know that either. Thank you for telling me and the viewers that. I appreciate that greatly. So let's set the scene. We're right there, Simmons Street and obviously Coleman Boulevard. We're getting ready, Rich. Getting ready mentally and physically for the bridge run. How should we pace ourselves?
The biggest mistake I see people make is going out too fast. I see people go out too fast every single year. They take off in a sprint. And you want to run what's called negative splits. That means run at your capacity, but at just below your capacity. Keep it aerobic. Go up that bridge at a steady pace. Once you get over the first hill, you've got another hill coming up and then another small hill coming up. So make sure that when you get to the top of that first hill, you're still aerobic. In other words, you're not in an anaerobic situation where you're over breathing and you're feeling like, I can't take another step. You want to just kind of cruise up that first hill. Then when you get to the top of that second hill, let it go. Just go. That's when you take off. And that's where you'll see actually the Kenyans will start to separate at that point. That's when they know what I'm telling you now.
Right.
They know that. And so they know that that's at about the 4 mile mark, close to between 3.5 and 4 miles. They know that's when you just go for it. And it's whoever's the fastest guy on that day is going to take the race.
Speaking of them, okay, I don't have any privy to this information, but who should we watch tomorrow morning?
I don't really know who we have. Usually I have a list, but this year, having moved the race several times,
yeah,
I don't have the list in front of me. So I really couldn't tell you. I'm sorry, I don't have that information. But we've got some of the ringers that come every year, and they look forward to the race. And if they finish second one year, they're going to want to finish first the next.
Right. And how many runners actually have broken that 28-minute mark?
Oh, in the world or in our race?
In your race, yes, so the Cooper Bridge Run.
About, I think maybe 2.
Wow.
Because that's an incredible pace. That's around 4:25 a mile.
Right. I know that for a fact, absolutely. And when I started out as a walker in 2000, we started at the foot of the bridge right there by Channel 2, and now I know the walkers are with us in the back there on Coleman Boulevard at the starting line. Why the change?
The change is due to sheer numbers. As this thing has grown, we've had to adapt.
Yes.
And the major adaptation is wider areas for spectators, more facilities. Mount Pleasant looks like the porta potty capital of the world. The day before the race, it looks like anyone would go to buy a porta potty. They're lined all up and down Coleman Boulevard. They're all at Marion Square, and that's important. I mean, the physiological function of the body is going to happen no matter what, and so we want to be ready for that. And we have, when we got up to that 40,000 runner and walker mark, it was important to make sure that people were comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable, you don't want to embarrass yourself on the course. And so we want it to be a great event and a happy event for all involved.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm running out of time, but Terry Hamlin, Coach Terry Hamlin, I should say, thank you for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks so much, and people can reach me at terry@coachterryhamlin.com. They can email me, and if they need coaching advice or want to have me take them on as a runner and make them a better runner, I do that.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. And I won't be running this year, but I'm coming back in 2022 in the next couple of months, so I'll probably see you at the starting line.
Attaboy. That's what I want to see, Quintin.
Thank you. Yes, sir, absolutely.